Welcome to the We're Not Blowing Hot Air podcast, powered by Oxygen Plus, featuring amazing athletes and wellness-minded individuals who share how they elevate their everyday lives. On this episode of We're Not Blowing Hot Air, BrainTap founder Dr. Patrick Porter is here to chat with co-founder of Oxygen Plus, Christine Warren, and me about his widely popular brainwave technology that actually helps you sleep and therefore live better. With heart wisdom and experience helping millions of people through his wellness products, Dr. Porter reveals just how BrainTap works by breaking down the science of his widely popular product. Get ready to learn and unlearn and expand your brain power and even hear more about psychedelics and overall wellness, all on this episode of We're Not Blowing Hot Air. Hi, I'm Lauren, and welcome to We're Not Blowing Hot Air. Today, we have a co-host, Christine Warren, the founder of Oxygen Plus. Hey, Christine.
Hi, Lauren. I'm really excited to be here. This is a topic I want to delve into.
Awesome. Me too.
Nice to meet you. It's a privilege, Dr. Patrick Porter.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Hi, Patrick. It's great to see you again. Of course, we did this last year when we chatted with Scott, and we learned so much. We were novices to your technology and this product, and now we consider ourselves, well, at least users, if not experts, and big fans of it. So we're really excited to have you back to give a more deep dive into what it does and what it offers. Just first of all, you know, your reputation precedes you probably now, most places you go, but you are the CEO, founder, and inventor of BrainTap, which is a very popular brainwave technology that helps you sleep and live better. That's been my personal experience too with it. But you're also a father, you have experience with hypnosis, you've been with an award-winning author, speaker, and also featured in Wall Street Journal and other publications. But I mean, how do you characterize yourself today? Like, what's your intro and what are you most proud of right now that you're up to?
Well, I think that what I'm most proud of is that I'm still doing what I love doing, and I started at 12 years old doing it. So I still feel like I've never worked a day in my life. I just love, if I could do this all day and help people with BrainTap, running a business isn't so fun for me, but doing the other parts of it, I love it. So if I could do those. And I know that people like yourselves and sharing this on this podcast, it helps us to better my mission is to better 1 billion brains. So I want to be known hopefully by the time I take my last breath, they'll say, hey, we got to 1 billion. That's what and I'm very, very happy with people loving it, growing it, and just helping people have a better brain, just like what happened to me. I think, if it worked for me, I think it will work for anyone, so.
It certainly has worked for me. I use it almost every night. You're in bed with me. Okay. And I have given it to my son. We have it here at work, so our employees can use it at any time for a break. So I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm, a year into this at this point.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the benefits and all of this and so much great information is on your website, braintap.com. But I mean, the main benefits are sleep quality, mental focus, energy, overcoming stress, weight loss, smoking cessation, managing pain, and accelerating learning. So I'd love if you could describe BrainTap, which essentially the unit is a headset with a visor, and then it connects with an app. But how do you like to talk about it?
Right. We always tell people there's two pieces to the BrainTap solution. One is the app. So if you don't have a headset, you can actually, I'm sure at the end of the show, you're going to tell people how they can get the app and they can start using it. With the app, you get the sound part. Most people don't realize the ears will process 25,000 pieces of information every second. But we only actually, let's say we filter most of it out because we only act on 40 pieces of information. So just like if we were in a restaurant eating and having a good meal, talking, and somebody 2 tables over said something about Oxygen Plus, we would all hear that because we're all familiar with that term, right? So
right.
that reticular activating system connects to it. And so what we have to do in order to cut through that noise is we use solfeggio frequencies, Noget frequencies, binaural beats, and isochronic tones. And we layer all of that into a proprietary mix using music, which we call 10 cycle music or holographic music. We want to get the whole brain involved. So even without using the headset, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, people are getting incredible results. In fact, one study that the listeners that we're going to be sharing this more, hopefully at the A4M, which we're going to be at here later in December, but we actually went against opioids for fibromyalgia in Brazil, and we beat them in 3 different studies just using the app. We were able to reduce pain better than opioids. So when you think about it, because opioids have a high and then they have a low. So with just the sound alone, you can do that. Now, what we do with BrainTap is we introduce light technology. And the way light works for the people listening is it creates vasodilation or microcirculation improvement in the areas where it's at. So we put it in through the ears and we put it in through the eyes. And this is because your eyes aren't just attached to your brain. Your eyes are literally brain matter. So most people, when we measure their brains, and I've been fortunate enough to measure over 30,000 brains with my team and we find that most people are operating in a high state of a brainwave called delta when they're awake. And we've probably all heard the expression, the masses are asleep. And what we found was that their brain definitely wants to be. I don't know if they're asleep, but their brain wants to shut down and reboot. So we're going to bring energy to the brain. And that energy comes in the form of ATP production, which is how the brain does the work. So we're going to put that in through the ears. And when people go, why would you put lights in the ears? Well, all the blood in your body moves through your ears every 4 to 5 minutes. Now, what light therapy does, especially when we're using 470 nanometer light and 650 nanometer light, these lights are absorbed by our hemoglobin or our blood, if you want to think about it that way. Then it circulates through the body and it's going to find the cells that are dying. And then if that cell can get that energy, the light energy, the cell won't die. It'll come back to life. That's why, like in our dementia study, where we took every person in our pilot study got off dementia in less than 6 weeks, it's because we provided energy to their brain. And once there's energy there, the innate intelligence of the body can heal the brain. So we're going to put flashing lights, we call it retinal flashing, and we have meridian lights because your ears, actually all the meridians in the body, which means like energy highways throughout the body, are being fed light energy. And when you add this light, sound, and vibration, now you've put, if you will, it's like a full sensory experience. So you're going into this full sensory experience where the brain literally has to follow it. They call it frequency following response. So, as you use it, what happens is the brain starts to build more blood vessels, more circulation, better improvement to the brain. And then the brain can work right. Most of us, as we get older, like I am, I commonly say better looking and more intelligent with age. But, as you get a little older, what happens is the brain starts to atrophy because of plaquing and all sorts of different reasons. But what we know is when you add light therapy, you're going to build blood vessels. Everywhere there's a blood vessel, there's a lymphatic vessel. And so what the lymphatic system does, if you look at any textbook before 2015, you're going to notice the lymphatic system stops at the neck. This is because in 2016, medical science finally realized that we have a glial lymphomic system, which means a lymph system of the brain, but it only activates during level 4 sleep. So if you don't ever get the deep sleep that you need, you never detox your brain. What we know is if you can build the circuitry, which our bodies does every day, as long as it's provided the right nutrients, we're moving and breathing, our brain is functioning right, all those things. And of course, as we give the body the oxygen that it needs, all those kind of things, the brain can heal itself. There's an innate intelligence that takes over. But the problem is if you're under stress, anxiety, fear, depression, the brain literally shuts down because everything happens to the body. Like if you get stress in your body, we feel like it's just in our body. Maybe we're feeling it in our heart or our abdomen or our arms or legs, and we're feeling this tension. But the reality is that the brain always gets 20% of whatever's happening to the body. So that stress is brain stress. So we need to liberate that stress from the brain so the innate intelligence can take over and heal the body. And that's really when we talk about the light, sound, the vibration, everything that goes into BrainTap. And then we add on top of that very specific positive psychology messages that we're going to guide you through that train your brain. To just give you one example, most people, unfortunately, how my dad got into this was he was a chronic alcoholic, but he got help. because he realized the old system didn't work. The old system was, and if AA worked for somebody, then congratulations, sure, what part of the 2% that AA worked for. So that 2%, because when you stand up and if I say, hello, I'm Patrick and I'm an alcoholic, we now know that by affirming that statement, our brain has to rewire itself. So I'm an addict. But if I say, hey, I'm Patrick, I'm alcohol free, that's a totally different rewiring of the brain. So if I could do one thing for AA, I'd say you stand up and say, hey, I'm Patrick, and now they say I'm a recovering, but if we could just say, hey, I'm Patrick, I'm a human being with infinite potential, and I'm here to get help. That's really what we're saying, because nobody's a behavior. The number one law of psychology states you can't be a behavior. But because so many people identify with their behaviors, like I'm fat, or I'm lazy, or whatever it is, those are things we do. They're not something that we are. We are infinite beings with the potential to heal ourselves from any situation. So part of what we do is we need to change that messaging. One unbelievable fact that maybe your listeners don't know is that we talk to ourselves over 60,000 thoughts a day, and over 80% of them are negative until you start changing them. And you have to start changing that message. And this isn't a bad thing. This kept us alive. That's why we're still here 200,000 years later, from the Serengeti to all over the planet, is because this reticular activating system of the brain was looking around saying, hey, am I safe? Is it okay for me to be here? And we were very cautious, but we don't have to worry about all those things anymore. I mean, used to be, we had to worry about famine and, being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. We don't have to worry about those things. And now we have to worry about, are we getting enough likes on Facebook? Are we, do we have enough soda in the refrigerator, or whatever, whatever their thing is. So there's all these different things that have still disrupted our flow. And so what we want to do with BrainTap is we're going to use our sensory-based system to change let's say our spatial location. So when people listen, a lot of times they'll hear the session and they'll wake up and they go, oh, I didn't realize I was here, because your brain, where your thoughts are, there you are. So if we can we can't physically take you to an island paradise, but we can take you there in your mind. And then your physiology will mirror that experience and give you the relaxation so you can offload some of that stress.
Yeah.
Well, so the words that we say can change how our brain thrives, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they now know Bruce Lipton actually showed that our words can change up to 2,300 gene expressions. So they don't just change our physiology or our psychology, they change our physiology. Our genes, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit different, but every 40 seconds, every gene pair on your body is changing. It's adapting from the words you say, the water you drink, the air you breathe, the movement you make, the people you hang out with. Everything when you look at a person, and I was just at a medical conference, and I asked my assistant who was there, I said, was I a little too brutal on them? Because doctors tend to look at a body like you'd look at a pond. And they say, they go, I'm going to put this pill into this pond and it's going to take all the algae out. And that might work, it might not work. But our bodies aren't a pond. Our bodies are more like that river, because you can call the river by the same name, but every morning that's a different river because the water flowing through it is different. The same is true with us, except ours isn't every day. It's every 40 seconds. You become a different person. So anyone listening to this podcast, you've changed actually not only 50 million cells per second, but of the trillions of gene expressions in your body are being altered, hopefully for the better, because now you're seeing, if we live in a world of infinite possibility, our genes open up to possibility thinking. If we live in a world of pessimistic thinking or fear, anxiety, distrust, then literally our body starts shutting down. So our words are very important. In fact, during COVID, they did a study and they showed those people who are in love and gratitude, because most people don't know this, but every person on earth transmits 810 nanometer light. Everybody does it, not just the saints we see with the corona discharge around their head. And, we talk about every person emits light. So we know the biggest place in the body where we transmit light. And just for those naysayers out there going, that's BS. Most people know who Tom Brady is, right? The football player. Well, he developed some clothing. Actually, I should say my science officer developed clothing for him called Tom Brady recovery wear, TB12. And what Francisco did, Dr. Cedral, is he put ceramics in the clothing that reflect back our own infrared light. And Tom Brady started wearing that so he could heal himself while he was wearing this clothing. I think we're just at the forefront. We're going to change everything we do to start using our own light, because every person has the capacity to heal another person if you're willing to share your light. But when you're in a state of fear, when you're in a state of anxiety and frustration, this study that I was talking about, 200 times more light is generated by a person in love and gratitude and peace and calm over people who are in fear and anxiety and distrust. So now more than ever, we have to be more optimistic and more positive in our thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. What's so interesting about this is it's almost unbelievable. And I'll just speak to the change that I experienced with it. It was so profound that I noticed in my own life, I'm more positive. I always wanted to be positive, right? But it actually started happening, and it happened pretty quickly. I'm talking within weeks at first. And then once I used it regularly, then it was within a day, or even that same day, I would bounce back out of a negative place and I'd be on fire and setting the world ablaze. I mean, it was really, really quite compelling. And I depend on it now. And I will say too, I appreciate, Dr. Porter, you have a lot of different sessions or types of what are they called, a session or
Yeah, we call them sessions or visualizations and guided imagery programs.
You have a lot of them, and I've listened to a lot, not all, but none of them are corny. And I so appreciate that, because even on there's a lot of meditation apps and different ways to kind of get that calm and relaxation, but they're either I really appreciate the craft and the professionalism that each one has in them. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because I'm never oh, this guy again, or this voice here. It's awesome. It's really cool that way. And it works. It's worked for me. So I will say too, I want to get more into a bit so it isn't just an app with good meditation, though. The science behind it is probably the accelerating agent on it, right? That really makes it powerful. Can we go a little more into that, into the light, sound, and vibration part?
Sure. Yeah. When we talk about the science of how people are experiencing it, to give you an example, we just did a study with a group of high school students in Gaylord, Michigan. And we published this study now. We're doing a bigger study now at Florida Atlantic University, where we took every person in the school that had a concussion, and 50% of them got BrainTap after their treatment. So why is that important? It's because most people don't know about recovery. It's not just about the treatment. It's how do you, and some people look at rest and relaxation as being lazy. But if you do it correctly, we need that for our body. When we were growing up, we took naps. As we get older, we're told, oh, you don't sleep, you're being lazy. But our body needs that time to regenerate and build that neuroplasticity. So what we did with this study was everybody got the same treatment. Nobody missed out on care. But 1 year later, so a 1 year washout, which means 1 year between the time they used the BrainTap and the time we did the last measurement, the group that had the BrainTap after their treatment was between 30% less neck pain, 70% less headaches. It was in all their neurological markers, 30 to 70% improvement. So what we're talking about here is something called brain fitness. How do we train our brain? Our brain doesn't learn the way when we learn a language in school. What we know is that if you know more than one language, if you know 2 or more languages, like my science officer, Dr. Sadral, who was talking about earlier, we were traveling through India, and we're about 3 weeks into it. He starts speaking Hindi. And I said, when did you learn Hindi? He goes, we've been here for 3 weeks. He speaks 6 languages. So most people think you need to learn the way they teach you in school or in college. That's not the way our brains learned when we were kids. We were in a brainwave state called theta. Theta is one of the primary training states we have at BrainTap. When you're in the theta state, you're in a state called hypermnesia, super memory. So we can re-engage those brain circuits that have been shut down because the brain is an energy hog. So it's always looking for ways to shut down the circuits. What we know is if you didn't learn another language before you were 7, it shut down the language learning genes, if you will, or the language learning program in the brain. So like for me, when I went through college and learned Spanish for 1 year so I could graduate, the most I got out of was baños, cerveza, and quichino. So I could go get my beer and go to the bathroom.
I had that experience in Buenos Aires when I went there for like a semester, and I probably even said that wrong, but my phrase was "Donde está mi bebido?" was like, "Where's my drink?" So I get it. And that was a rough year learning a language that late in life. But and so in this study, they used the headset. They didn't just right?
Yeah, they used the whole headset.
Okay. So, and that's where that's because then you get the vibration, you get the light and the voice or the sound and the music.
Yes, right? The light for recovery, if you have something going on like dementia or Alzheimer's, stress, anxiety disorders, if you really want to take it to the next level, it's the headset. But if you can't afford that right now and you just need to use the app, what we found, we did a study in Australia, we just got the finals back from that, I think, since we did our talk a year ago. And these were coal miners. So these were Eastern Australia coal miners. I'm pretty sure it was Eastern. And we just published this paper too. We presented it to the National Institute of Health because it was so profound. We actually took these guys for 6 weeks. In 3 weeks with the headset, they had 70% sleep improvement. These were people that went to work in the dark, slept in the dark, left in the dark. There's no circadian rhythm. They didn't see the light of day. And what we know is light is the most underprescribed nutrient. People aren't getting enough light. So the group that didn't use the headset, because the control group just used the app, that group took 6 weeks to get to 70%. The reason I say 70% is usually when we get about between 70 and 80% sleep improvement, that's all we can do. Most of these people only had 3 minutes of deep delta sleep. And when I was talking about the glial lymphomic system, we need an hour of deep sleep. Like if anyone's out there listening and they have a BioStrap, an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch, and you measure your sleep, you'll notice when you get an hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep, you're crushing that app. You're getting 90s and you're doing really well. But if you only get 30 minutes of deep sleep and an hour of REM, you're probably are below 70. These guys were in the 30s.
Wow.
Basically, and when Dr. Cohn, who did the study with us, when he sent us pictures, they looked like they were 90 years old, but they were only 45 and 30 years old. And I'm going, they all looked super old because one thing that's going to age you faster than anything else is stress, but also the stress of not sleeping. It's a pretty bad situation.
Right. I heard some of those, there's famous people in history that were famously didn't sleep, but then they had a very bad end to their life's end. They died in a bad way.
Well, studies now show that if you go without sleep for 3 days, it's equivalent to having 2 drinks while you're walking around. So even though most people don't think 2 drinks will affect you, if you saw some of the brain scans I have after somebody had 2 drinks, your brain literally goes offline. Now, if you're doing it and you're doing it, the reason you get a buzz is your brain's going offline, so people can do that, but just, you don't want to do it all the time because then you're going to be in recovery mode all the time instead of healing mode.
It's amazing. Again, I'm sorry to just talk about my own story with it, but I feel like it's made me smarter. Is that possible? I feel like I'm sharper, that I think the clarity I absolutely have. I travel with this now, even though it takes up a quarter of some suitcases that I travel with. It's in there. And I use it if I can't sleep in a hotel room, but I'm hitting 2 to 3 hours of deep sleep sometime. My Oura Ring tells me that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, one thing is that we did a study actually with pilots who flew, and it was done by one of the graduate students at Quantum University, and he was a pilot himself, so he went with them, and we showed that people flying from San Francisco to China, they go over 7 time zones, and really don't think of time zones, think of light zones, because the sun powers our cells. It basically, the sun communicates with our body at a cellular level. So for instance, that's why every day at 2:00 we get hungry, because our temperature drops 2 degrees. Most people go for coffee and tea and sugar instead of taking a nap, but that's when you do a power nap. So when you're thinking about the equipment, what we're doing is we're resetting that circadian rhythm. And then once you do that, once you've offloaded that stress, also one of the reasons why you feel smarter is we are exercising those brain waves. So when we think right now, hopefully everyone has a good blend of brain waves right now while they're listening. But I can guarantee you, if I was to measure everybody listening to this podcast, 90% of them would be over 50% delta, unless they're using BrainTap. Because it does. I did a talk just the other day. I flew across country twice. I did a talk. I got in an airplane, flew back. And I did do a session on the other end, but when I got back, I was a 13 on our NeuroCheck technology, which is advanced heart rate variability. But after I did a session, I was at 78. And this is what we did with the pilots. We showed them that what usually would take 4 days to recover from flying that long trip from San Francisco to China, it only took 4 hours because we rebooted. Now, what we had them do is do an actual session on the airplane. Because, they have a little room on the airplane. They can just go back and it's a little almost like a shower. They can go back in there and that's where they sleep. If they're the pilot that's sleeping on the trip, we said, before you go to sleep, just do a BrainTap session. And they were willing to do that. And it changes your neurology, because when you don't sleep well, your brain doesn't work that well. So sleep is where you incubate those superpowers that we need on the next day.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I'm going to take it to Vegas, so I'm definitely going to need that this week when I'm out there.
I'm glad to hear that this works without the headset, because I have had a number of people interested in using it. So I can let them know they can have the app and they will find a way better than
if you share the free link with them, they can just start using the app. And usually about anywhere between 80 to 90% of the people will get sleep improvement just during that first 15-day trial. And that's what they say, wow, there must be something to it. And then the light's going to make it work just that much better. But some people will use the headset, and then on an airplane or something, they'll just use the earbuds. Because once you've used the headset for a while, you can get away without needing the headset every time. I still use the headset every time pretty much. So, but it's just a matter of, it's my company. So that's what happens.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it does take to build for sleep, like regular use for 30 days, I think is what typically you have to kind of train your brain, get the brain fit. And then you can kind of skip a few days if you need to, like stuff like that. But sometimes in the app, Dr. Porter, you're like saying once a day is good. Twice a day is better. 3 times a day is like great.
Excellent. Yep.
Okay. So is that, I mean, like, what are we missing?
Well, when we did the dementia study that took these were women, 55, 65 years old, all diagnosed with dementia. We found that if they didn't do it 3 times a day, the brain would dysregulate too quickly. So morning is really important even for sleep, because the morning sessions train a brainwave called SMR, sensory motor rhythm. That's the brainwave that has to do with balance. So if you think about it, when people get older, what happens? They lose their balance, they lose their equilibrium. Well, it's a brain function. It could be they're losing and atrophying with muscle, but we have a balance tracker here at the clinic, and we show them every day, hey, we do a balance test with them. We have them do BrainTap, we have them do a balance test. They go, how did I improve that much? Well, we got your brain worked out. All they did was take a little nap for 10 minutes. But then when they got up, their brain was working better. So when you say, are you smarter? Yeah, because that's the frontal lobe exercise. And really it's your hippocampus. So if you think about this part of the brain, the hippocampus is responsible for assembling all our memories. And if there's stress, we stop blood flow and circulation to this area of the brain. So just as an example, we've all had the experience where we knew something, we practiced it, we rehearsed it, and then we got up in front of a group or friends, we went to do it and it didn't work out. We got a little flustered, and then nothing would work right because the brain was stressed. If we just kept relaxed, and that's the big problem with it. Used to be the biggest fear was public speaking, because people would get up to talk and all that knowledge would fall to their feet and they wouldn't have anything in their brain. So
100%. So true. That's one of the applications I had in my job, my work world. It was, I had a big customer presentation at Walmart in Bentonville this year. And I had to pitch first time to like a real major retailer, and it was scary. But like I did the BrainTap only leading up to it. And like I had the confidence and I delivered, and like that's exactly what I'm talking about. The things I couldn't do before, I saw myself doing, I had the confidence to do, and then I filled it. And like that isn't me. Like I'm not a salesperson. That wasn't my like role. Like, and also not only being smart, I think even better, more like awareness or like regulation about like your like thoughts and how you interact with people. Like that is another change that I've seen. And it's actually, I also did some ketamine assisted therapy or psychotherapy, the CAP it's called. And that I feel like it's the same thing. It's the delta and the theta waves that has released the brain to have this access. And I just wondered if you had a comment about that, because I know like
I've done ketamine myself, and I'm actually the voice of ketamine at home. We have an app for them that's just for the ketamine people. Basically people have been reporting back that it's a 15-minute lozenge you put in your mouth, and you actually open up your laptop and they walk you through it, and you take the ketamine, and then I have a little video they watch and that explains it. And then they put on the headset and they do their BrainTap session. And people reported back it's like DMT. So, but DMT is part of DMT gets triggered with BrainTap just by going through theta or the gamma sessions. But when you do it with the ketamine, and we did the pre and post test of the neurology. It was awesome. I'm usually around 100%, but it's very rare now because I'm still a young man at 61. But when I did the testing, I was 100% across the board after the ketamine session with BrainTap. It was like my brain was lit up from what happened.
Christine, didn't you have an experience with BrainTap where you were tripping, like you were hallucinating?
I did.
Yeah.
I just remembered that.
It was your cohort, and I can't remember his name, with a biohacking fellow. So you both were on the app, I believe. And I mean, I just kind of got lost in a magical land.
Oh, Dave Asprey, is that the name?
Yes. And that had never happened to me. And I thought, well,
didn't you see though, like Martian or Men or something?
Yes,
like that?
It was like.
Well, what happens, just like with ketamine, I was actually talking to God or whatever on ketamine. I don't know who it was. I mean, I thought I was going to remember it all while I was doing it because, I thought I knew the secrets of the universe. Then I got back here and I didn't remember them. But what happens is when you trigger, every brainwave triggers neurotransmitter production. So when you trigger high gamma or you trigger theta, just as an example, theta triggers GABA. GABA is a precursor to DMT. DMT is what they call the God molecule, but it's in every cell of your body. And the biggest time it's released in the system is when we die. So, but it happens every night when you sleep too. We just don't remember it. So you had a chance to be there present for that experience. And the reality is that what we see with our eyes, we see 2,000 pieces of information every second, but our brain only acts on 4. But the most amazing part of our brain is our brain gets fed over 10 million pieces of information every second. So what neuroscientists tell us is we're making all this up. It's not real.
Yeah.
We don't get enough input to create the rich experience that we have. So our brain adds in the details.
Yeah.
So you got a chance to glimpse into that.
I did. Reality. And I had never tried anything, drug-wise.
Psychedelic.
Yeah, nothing. But I am kind of curious about mushrooms in the brain.
Oh yeah, we've done studies with that too. Dr. David Rosenthal down in Dallas, we did a PTSD study with the veterans, and they were going to do. We did it with BrainTap and psilocybin, but we had a group of people that didn't want to do the psilocybin because they were addicts and they felt like they would get addicted to it. It's never been shown to be addictive. At the time they did that, I had never done a psilocybin, but I've been to California since then. So, I found somebody that was doing a ceremony, and I went and did it just to have an experience. And I had a pretty wild experience, kind of like ketamine is what it's like.
Yeah,
And then, but what he found out was that's why we have the gamma sessions now. If somebody listens to those gamma encodings, then we've had people have psilocybin trips without a psilocybin because we have a psilocybin receptors, we have cannabinoid receptors, we have opioid receptors. These are all receptors in the brain. And what most people don't realize, it's not the drug, because if we didn't have receptors for it, it would just pass through our system and eliminate it. But because we have receptors for it, which means it must be something that we're connected to. There's a reason. Now, the reason we have opioid receptors is not to take opioids. It's to trigger our body's natural ability to remove pain. Once pain gets to a certain threshold, our body kicks in and we don't feel it anymore. We become numb to that pain. Just like we need times, our body craves getting outside of the stress that we're in every day. So we have some people do it through exercise, proper nutrition, doing some biohacking, whatever that is. But other people choose to do destructive, like destructive alcohol or, different things like that. I think anything in moderation is good, but, there are times, just like we do at home, my wife and I, we'll sit down and we'll watch a couple comedies, at night before we go to sleep. We don't watch the news because, that's just a downer and we know it kills the brain, puts you in a fear state and anxiety. I always tell people, if you're too happy, just turn on the news, but right. We need to be happier when we go to bed because that will feed into our dreamscape. So what happens when you do this psilocybin or you do ketamine in these therapies that they do, that's why they say the set and setting is so important. So you have a nice, like spiritual kind of environment. So you realize this is something that the ancients did forever. Yep. This isn't new. We're just finding new ways to liberate our brain. And they used to go on vision quests and they used to do all these things. And there was nobody addicted to vision quest. There's nobody really addicted to doing a psilocybin or even ketamine. But usually they do it maybe once or twice a year, 3 times a year, and then that's enough for them. And they do it for a therapeutic reason. I think there's some real value there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the research is showing, that only with the integration is there really a value with psilocybin or ketamine or any other psychedelic kind of, and set and setting for sure. I'm so glad you're like into this, because your leadership in this tool, I think, could be even more expansive and helpful for people. And just to bring it full circle, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous was his last step. Like, it's not written in any of the documents, the original main documents, but he actually dabbled in psychedelics because that was how he connected to God and to something bigger. So, and there is that's legitimate research. It can be proven that's out there. So it was like, I'm sure he'd love you. He'd be very open to everything and BrainTap and what it had to offer him and people in his life. Like, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that he was also into nutrition. He was really into niacin. If you want to get your brain going before you meditate, do a little pinch of niacin. It's really very inexpensive. I do a scoop every morning before my meditation and my brain's just buzzing because niacin is really good for stress on the body. It's, B3. So it's really good for what we can do to, it flushes out the system. Some people don't like the niacin flush, but there's just start with a little bit and do it. But he attributed that also because most people forget about the nutrition piece.
Yep.
It's not just going to meetings and standing up and saying you're an alcoholic. It's you got to do the work and you got to change your physiology. You got to feed your body correctly and you got to exercise your body and you got to think positive. You do those 3 things and you're going to get magic happening in your life. And then connect to a power greater than yourself. People that, if you think that we're a singular organism that's floating out here in the universe somewhere, that disconnection will cause distress on the body. Everything's connected. I mean, how many times have you thought of somebody and they text you?
Yeah. Or
you talk about somebody you haven't heard in a while, they give you a call.
So I have this question. I was for decades a marriage and family therapist. And do you have any research on BrainTap helping people not be on psychotropic drugs?
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't have research on it yet. We're doing some more in Brazil. That's we have 6 different universities down there that are partners with us. So they're looking into doing some of that. But what we do know is that one of the biggest things we do in our clinics we have 3,000 clinics across the country that are using BrainTap. The biggest feedback we get is people don't need so much of their different drugs that they're taking, because the most powerful pharmacy is not Walgreens. The most powerful pharmacy is the one between your ears. We need to activate that 30,000 different neurochemicals with the right thoughts. So, if you can sometimes you have to take the medicine for a while to get yourself together, so you can do something. Right. But as soon as you can get it together, usually nutrition, Tai Chi, yoga, dance, some kind of movement therapy. And really that's about getting oxygen into the system. If you don't get oxygen into the system, bad things happen, right? So, and then we gotta start working the brain. And whether it's a practice in the morning of a gratitude breath work, or doing some kind of 4-8 breath before going to sleep, some way we've got to make peace with our bodies, and it starts with our mind. And once we do that, magic happens, because everything else will be revealed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a true believer in this. I'm a different person, in how I feel and relate with the world. I'm happier, positive, and honestly, from a year ago, I wasn't this when we last talked on our first time made the podcast. So so much of it I attribute to BrainTap, also the ketamine assisted therapy, and really what those things did for me was all those other things you were talking about: a positive attitude, eating well, proper nutrition, exercise, oxygen, all of those things. That was the last piece that made it all come together. The brain and the having all that positive reorganization of the brain is what really made it all happen for me. So that's why it's such an honor having you and knowing you, and being able to share about this awesome technology which will you say we don't endorse? This isn't a paid thing. Can we just get that on the record? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing is the brain needs that time to rewire, like ketamine or psilocybin in that. It can be just an experience, or it can be life-changing. If we can get the brain to rewire around that, there's a theory in neuroscience, because they don't really know yet, but what they're saying is if you can get one new thought into the brain, a constellation of changes happen in the brain to rewire around that idea, because every thought is like beads on a string. So if you change, for instance, if you look at your past differently now because you did ketamine therapy, where, hey, that past brought me to this moment, now I can be my true spiritual, authentic self, then it's almost like dominoes falling. All those things that blocked you just go away. You don't have to deal with every single issue. You dealt with the core issue, and that was holding the others up. And once that's gone, it's like a straw man that just kind of falls to the ground and it doesn't hold weight anymore. Honestly, life can be beautiful and brilliant and big. And so, I mean, I love it. And you're so inspirational on that. Truly, your words bring people to be open to that. So thank you for coming on to this podcast. Christine and I are very grateful. I would like to ask you, tell us just about you have an affiliate program. Maybe I should sign up for that.
Yeah. If you go to first go with your, whatever the login is you have for BrainTap, go there. Okay. And then there's a site called bt.life. You can sign up, but you first have to have an account with BrainTap.
I think I should become an affiliate, because it's an easier way to spread it.
Well, the nice thing is when you're an affiliate, you get a free link that gives it away for free. Yeah. So we don't want you to be a salesperson either. What I believe is if people use it, they're going to get touched, moved, and inspired, and then they're going to want to do it. I don't like to be a salesman either. I like people to be educated, let them use it if they like it, because we're very lucky. We have very few refunds ever, because we let people try it first. If you don't like it, you're not going to buy it. So I know that everything's not for, one thing's not for everyone, but I know that you need time for this to work. So when we talked a little bit about the science, every one of the BrainTap series builds upon the next. So once you do this for, let's say, for 21 days, that's why we have the 21-day jumpstart at the beginning for people that want to follow the protocol. That's one that we use in most of our research. So we know that if you do it 3 times a day for 21 days, you've done some massive retraining of your brain. And now you could listen to anything on the platform. Now, that being said, you could listen to 1 a day and still get that too. But when somebody has a condition that they want to work on, whether it's weight loss, stop smoking, stress, anxiety, pain, we recommend 3 times a day, because we got to interrupt the pattern. The pattern is so ingrained that even, there are people out there that don't get out of bed till they're adequately stressed. They lay there in bed and catastrophize. And then when the panic is so great, they jump out of bed. And then the worst thing can happen, they go have a cup of coffee while they're stressed. So then they've amplified that, so the anxiety begins to rule their life. We need people to be calm, relaxed, collective, and let the innate intelligence of our body and our life take over and kind of go more with the flow like we see the animals do, instead of what people seem to be more frenetic and, more anxious. I
love it. Absolutely. Well, so then my recommendation is first to download the free app, to our listeners. And then if you want more information, you can go read about it on braintap.com, but just go get the free app, try it out, listen to it. If you love it, invest in the headset. It's awesome. I use it. Like I said, I travel with it. And then you can also follow them on, let's see, we got Instagram, BrainTap Tech, and on it's same for TikTok. I'm not going to call out the Facebook one because we know where all the young kids are right now. So
if they also go to @Dr. Patrick Porter, they'll see some of my reels. I've got literally, they have full talks and things like some of the meditations I did at Biohacking, they posted up there and things like
on
that.
Instagram or TikTok? Okay.
Instagram. I think they put them I don't really do a lot with social media, but I have some 18-year-olds that do.
Awesome. That's the best. Good. No, it's all very good. It's very digestible how you educate. And that's another great helpful thing.
Well, what I'm excited about, it seems like the brain is still untapped, even though you're tapping it. And it's really a new discovery in so many ways. And I can't wait till we meet up again and talk about where we're at and what's possible.
He invited us last year down to his lab I want our entire team's brain measured, and I'm going to make sure that we know. You can come
down to New Bern. We have a 14 station biohacking lab here. So we have more than just BrainTap, but we have a lot of other things that I created that were too expensive to produce, but I have them here because I wanted them for myself. So you're invited down. Just let us know when you're coming and we'll have the door open for you. As they say, the light will be on. So.
All right. It'll be next year in the good year of 2023, but we will be there. Thank you again, Patrick.
Okay.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode was brought to you by Oxygen Plus, produced by me, Lauren Karlstrom, and was edited and engineered by Scott Deming. If you love our podcast as much as we do us a solid and subscribe, share, rate, and review. We're not blowing hot air, so more people get the chance to elevate their everyday lives with Oxygen Plus.